With cold weather here and the holidays on their way, if you like to have a nice warm cup of spiced apple cider or a spiced wine or maybe even a spiced rum, then today's recipe is going to be for you. Today's recipe is very simple. We're only going to be using 4 ingredients to make something we can put on the shelf to add to apple juice or to wine or even to rum to make it into a spiced drink. We'll be using sugar, cinnamon, nutmeg, and cloves. Before I start putting these together, I'm going to give you the amounts that I'm going to mix, and I'll make sure that I also leave a link to this recipe on our webpage in the description. So we're going to be taking just a bowl and we're going to mix a cup of granulated sugar, a tablespoon of cinnamon, and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg and a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves. So let's get those mixed in our bowl. So we are going to start with 1 cup of sugar, and I'm just using your standard granulated sugar. So there's 1 cup. Then we're going to use 1 tablespoon of ground cinnamon. And then we're going to use 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg and 1/4 teaspoon of our ground cloves. And then we're going to just mix this all together. Now that I have this all mixed together, I'm going to put this into a jar. With this all mixed, I'm going to be putting it into just a 1/2 pint jar for the amount that I made. And I'm doing this because I'm only going to be using small amounts at a time to add into my drinks. And I want to be able to keep this on the shelf, easy to use, ready to get when I want it. So let's get this into our jar. If you happen to have a jug of apple cider in your fridge, you can add this to that apple cider to make it a spiced apple cider. I don't happen to have any apple cider in the fridge, but I do have jars of just fresh home steamed apple juice that we had made. I'll make sure I leave a link to the video where we made the apple juice that I'm going to use, and I want to see how close this comes to tasting like a spiced apple cider. So let me get this open. We'll put it into our pan. Now you can do this with a cranberry juice as well as your apple juice. Steve was even talking about trying this with an orange juice to see how it would come out. So don't worry about what you're using. Be brave. Like I said, I'm using some unsweetened apple juice that we made. This is a 1/2 teaspoon measure. I'm going to put in 2 1/2 teaspoons. So we're going to add a full teaspoon. I'm going to stir this in, and then we're going to put it onto the stove to warm it up. We're going to put this on our wood stove since that's what we have going today. And I'm going to give this a little stir periodically, but I'm going to let this sit here and warm up until it's ready, and then we'll give it a taste test. So let's get that off the stove and get it into our glass. This is going to be warm, so hopefully I don't burn myself with this, but it should be fine. It looks like a cider, the nice thick color to it. See, the glass is nice and steamy, so let's give this a sip. It's very, very good. Now, depending on how spicy you want your apple cider or whatever it is you decide to mix this with, you can always add a little less or a little more. Like I said, I added 1 teaspoon to 1 cup of liquid. If you're going to do, say, a quart, you might want to start with a tablespoon per quart. And you can also increase the quantities of this if you want to make it into jars that you can give as a gift for Christmas for somebody who likes it. To me, this tastes almost like if you've ever had the Alpine spice cider mix. Very close. Not as sweet, but I'm not looking to have something that's quite as sugary. But overall, this is an absolute winner. One last thing I wanted to mention, if you're adding this to something that is pre-sweetened, you might want to start on the low side on how much you add. I added it to a completely unsweetened apple juice, so that was great. Now, I will make sure that we have a link, as I said, in the description to the recipe. I'll also leave as a suggested video how we made our apple juice. And if you liked our video, make sure you give us a thumbs up, subscribe, share our video with any of your friends who might like our content, and until next time, everybody, take care.